Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Making Spaces podcast, a podcast about making space for yourself and others, both literally and figuratively. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah, and the other host is
Jimenez.
Guys, today we have, I hope it's going to be a fun show. I feel like it's going to be a fun show. If it's not working out, I reserve the right to just stop recording, except this is not my recording Zoom. But today we have the Dirty Rotten Church Kids, and we are so excited to have Adrian and Josh, A to J. And they
A to J.
A to J. If you don't know who they are, I would invite you to use something called the internet. Check them out on Instagram. They're part of the Irreverent Media podcasting group, but they also have a wonderful podcast called Dirty Rotten Church Kids. They have great merch, which, Josie, you promised us you were going to wear their shirt, but then also you moved. So if you can find their shirt, I'd be real impressed.
I was wearing it to that day's recording.
Oh.
I didn't mean like this recording.
Oh, because you wouldn't wear like a band shirt to a band's performance.
There it is. There are the rules.
Right.
The unspoken laws.
I got it. That's cool.
Really, I just didn't think about it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you. So, friends, one of the things we ask people as we start the episode is, where is one of your favorite spaces? And it doesn't have to be your favorite space, one of your favorite spaces, and why? And it can be like as complex or as easy as you want. You're both looking around the room. I'm going to ask Adrian because his name starts with an A.
Adrian, you better have an answer. Thank you.
We'll go first. Hello, by the way. Hi, friends. So great to see you both.
So good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Okay, I think currently one of my favorite spaces as of this past Christmas, this is like a very physical space. If you're expecting someone like really lofty and deep, it's not going to happen.
Okay, perfect.
So last Christmas, we installed a big circle swing for our kids and a tree in our backyard. Our backyard has one tree. And so we have like this massive circle swing, and we did it for the kids. What I did not expect was that in the beautiful months from between Christmas and now, the weather's been really gorgeous, and just laying out on my little circle swing and just swinging myself. And I don't even know what my kids are doing. They're kind of over it. Like they don't really care about it as much.
They don't care about the swing. It's like a hammock.
It's like a hammock, but it's a swing. And I just lay out. And that's become like, I don't know, I get to feel really deep, really poetic. I don't know. It's pretty great.
I love that. I love that.
Cute.
I like wind. Like I like to feel the breeze a lot. And so like, I love to swing on things. I love hammocks. I love just being outside. So I love that. A giant
At a
swing.
certain age, I just stopped swinging, you know?
Yeah.
You just stop swinging.
That's
And
so
so I'm
sad.
trying to get my swing back. How Adrian got his swing back.
How
That's
Adrian got
something.
his swing back. I'm excited about that. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Thank
love your
you.
memoir.
I love it. Josh,
Yeah. So
up to you, bud.
I would say, I mean, it's kind of like a large space, but Miami. Every once in a while, like when I'm feeling like I need a break from work, I'll take a day off and I'll ride my little one wheel board around Miami, just eating food and drinking coffee along the way. And you're surrounded by boats and ocean and weird Miami Beach people. And so it's never a dull moment. But yeah, that's super relaxing because South Florida, there's very few spaces to find that are nice and cool in the middle of the day. So you kind of just have to embrace the heat and just ride around in it. So it's fun, like weaving in and out of traffic. I like have my headphones on. So it's like a whole personal soundtrack happening for me. It's like my own movie. So that's nice.
I just talked about this. Whenever I go to an airport, I will listen to music and then I feel like I'm in some sort of movie and no one else knows that they're actors in my movie, but I have like written the script where like they're saying goodbye to each other for the last time. They're like, I have like this whole like narrative.
I thought it was going to be happy. You're writing like really sob stories.
Oh no, it's beautiful. But and then like they haven't seen each other like during. So the last time I flew was like, quarantine, things are starting to lift up and people are seeing each other and they haven't seen each other in like a year. So I'm just sitting there like, but then I'm like, this is weird. And then I'm like, I just stare at them. I've got a mask
For the
on.
record, Sarah, for the record, what is your airplane song? Like, what's your first airplane song? I want to know what your movie soundtrack
Okay,
is.
so my movie soundtrack last time was a little bit, it sort of it was like James Bay. It was very deep, like sort of like soft and melodic music. So I was doing and then I'll listen to Ryan Adams when I'm just needing, just like a little I need a moment, I'll listen to Ryan Adams and I'll just walk and kind of forget who he is as a person, but I really enjoy his music. And
Right.
yeah, I'll put it on like a mix. I've got like a whole album, which I can tell you the title of later, but one of my things that I do is I make playlists on Spotify for friends. And so I have got all these playlists, and one of them is my travel playlist, but it includes like if I were to just like look at it right now, it includes like old school songs, but we're talking like even like Blink 182 is on there.
Nice.
So I'm all over the place, but it's usually
You
like,
did send us an email that as a part of us guesting, you were planning on creating an A2J Spotify playlist for us. Thank you so much. We're so honored.
Excited to get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're really excited to get it.
oh yeah, super cool. Yep, I'll do it. No, I'm a weirdo where I just love, like, music to me means everything. And I'm always listening to new stuff like this one. The one that I was just thinking, like, as I walked down the runway, I'm embarrassed to say, like, there's even like Shawn Mendes is on there every now and then. And the
Okay.
Lord Huron, as you're
Okay.
like coming off the, like, I know.
Sarah,
Yeah,
we're
I-
very different people. My playlist is pretty much just the Bitches Back radio by Elton John, like that radio station of just the
Yeah.
bitches back.
Which that's fine. I like that. But it's not just like, for me, it needs to be almost like
As Josie
cinematic.
gets off the plane, she's like, "The bitch is back.
Yeah, which
I
I mean,
have arrived."
I'm here.
Amen, baby.
Here I am. Yeah, I'm like looking through.
Like on the topic of airports, I would love to run through an airport like Home Alone when they like didn't know, like they woke up late. But we can't do it
Yes.
because the terrorists.
Terror.
They have ruined everything, including
Yeah,
the airport
I want to do.
run.
I want to do that.
I would actually love to flip it. I would love to do like running through the rain and then through the airport, listening to like Sweet Disposition or something by the Temperate Trap. As if I'm
Ooh.
trying
It is
to like
on my
catch,
list.
well, before,
Inside.
and then I get out of the rain and then I'm wet and I'm kind of sliding all over the place. But true, like open palm Tom Cruise sprint is what I would plan on doing.
You'd be a
Yes.
Scientologist in your wildest dream.
I would.
Ooh.
Holy Lord.
Yes.
we become.
Yes. Guys, it's just like, it's like, it's old school stuff. It's like Dennis and Whitmer. I'll be like walking down. I'm just,
Oh my gosh. Gosh.
yeah, guys.
I haven't thought about them in a long time. Wow.
I mean, you just sometimes, like, I'm looking here, like, just embarrassed, like capital cities. If I'm feeling like a little pumped up, I love like.
Don't
epic.
ever be embarrassed about the music that makes you happy.
unless
Never be.
it's Insane Clown Posse, then
Then be
I
like
think
a
you're
little
fine.
embarrassed.
Then be embarrassed.
Yeah, no.
Unless you're a juggalette walking through the airport.
Yeah.
We do have one that goes to our church, but we can talk about that off.
Nice.
Yep. Friends.
I don't think she listens to Insane Clown Posse.
She does. She does. I'll send you her website. It's
never mind.
real informative. Not only that's where that
Oh
outfit
wow.
came from.
But even juggalos and juggalettes need spaces too. So that's probably
Exactly, and we are that
That's why we're
in
here.
our church community. So, friends, one of the things that is so fun is that we are part of this Irreverent Media Group thing together. And I know that you guys make space for folks who are coming out, a lot of folks who are coming out of like an evangelical system, or for people who just want to laugh at the thing they grew up in or that they've been around. So I would love to hear from both of you kind of how you started in this sort of space yourselves. Like, how did we get to the Dirty Rotten Church Kids? Were you just born dirty and rotten?
I mean, if you ask my evangelical upbringing for the
Yes.
past 3 decades, absolutely I was.
Amen.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of like tee it off, and then Josh, you can pick up. We know we're gonna pick up. So basically, both of us have grown up in church our entire lives. We have done everything from volunteering and serving. We've worked as staffers on a church, worship leaders. We even held the title of pastor for a short stint as church planters, even though we weren't full-time actually pastors. We were working full-time jobs, 9 to 5s, and then just kind of working our butts off over the weekend. And these are just things. So, and it's one of those things where between the two of us, we've interacted with so many kind of classic evangelical type denominations, whether it be non-denominational to kind of Southern Baptist, charismatic, Pentecostal, neo-reformed, the whole gamut of that sort of white American evangelical sphere. And so I think that informed a lot of our our understanding with kind of the evangelical system. And so eventually we left our churches because we were exhausted, primarily. Whenever church is your thing, and you are constantly told to really like pour yourself out so that others can be filled, the catch is you're never full, you're always empty. And so we left the church that we planted because we were exhausted. But I think kind of undergirding that whole thing of exhaustion was our own faith change, and you can call it deconstruction or whatever. But that was kind of like the thing underneath the thing. And I think part of the exhaustion physically is tied to an emotional and spiritual disconnect that's happening behind the scenes. Like I'm sure those two were connected somewhere. So that's how we left. And then Josh, DRCK kind of segued from there.
Yeah.
How were you two planting that church together? Is that how you guys connected?
Yeah, we had ran into each other at our previous church. It was like Southern Baptist. I was leading worship, and then couldn't lead worship for a while because my college class interfered with it. Adrian came in, took it over, and when I came back from that semester, Adrian was still leading worship, and so I hated him, but I didn't tell him because it's super passive aggressive.
I love this rom-com. Keep going.
Yeah, and then I texted him one day like, "Hey, Adrian, Eric gave me your number. I don't like you." And so Adrian, he's like such a people pleaser. He's like trying to figure out what he did wrong, and it was just my
Wait,
from
did you
then on,
literally say I don't?
Such a kind. He said he's like, I don't like you. But then I think he had to kind of massage it with like evangelical language. So he's like, but it's something that I'm really working on, and like the devil's like been messing with me lately or whatever.
I didn't say anything about the devil. That's a lie from the devil.
I'm pretty confident about that.
But yeah, it was that.
We eventually built a respect, as frenemies often do. We became best buds
and fall in love. I love this story.
Fell in love. And so when we left to plant the church, we did it together. And then after we left, Josh, if you want to run with it from there.
Yeah, so we both kind of left, and like when you leave something that you do for 30 plus years, like that's your entire identity, you're kind of just like, I felt very much like standing in the middle of the field, like, what do I do? Where do I go? Like, I'm so used to doing, and now there's nothing to actually do besides like just hang out with my family, be a husband, be a father, like hang out on the weekends and have brunch on Sunday. So
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's not a bad alternative. But Adrian and I, kind of like apart from each other, both had an idea to start a podcast, and we mentioned it to each other. And like, I had all this audio equipment left over from this church plant that we poured all of our money into. Like, we're not doing anything anymore. We should, if you want to be creative, let's take a stab at this. And so the whole hope of DRCK was that just letting one person know that it's okay to not know everything. We didn't know what deconstruction was. We had no idea we were going to write a song for every single one of our guests. We had no plan on it. We had no plan on anyone listening. And so we sat there, we penned out like 10 or 12 topics we want to talk about, and like had people in mind, like our small, really small friend group now that we've lost all our friends. And we just rolled with it. And Trip Fuller gave us some really good advice. He was speaking at a Heartway, which is a local church here that was like the gateway for Adrian and I both. Such an amazing place. But I talked to him like, hey man, I know you get this all the time, but I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Like, what's your?
He's one of my really good friends.
Yeah, he just goes, just do it. Don't wait, just do it. So that's what we did. And then it really took off, and then we found ourselves in the middle of what we now know to be deconstruction. And I don't know, it's just been a wild ride. I still don't understand why anyone listens to us, and I still don't understand how any of it works, but it just shows that there is like this need for people to belong. And my dad asked me a very pointed question when him and I did talk. His question was, why do you laugh at all these things? I'm like, well, if I need to approach something, I'm going to laugh at it first, and then I can inch my way up to it. Like, you're going to a haunted house, which Adrian now understands because he went to one for my birthday, which was awesome. It was great.
But laughing helps.
Yeah. So you have to exactly. That's the face. It's like halfway between a laugh and like shitting your pants.
Yep.
That's how I
A
want to
classic
live
laugh
life. Classic laugh. You know the one. You know.
That's
you
a great.
guys-
That's
you
a
know the
great
one.
Tarjay shirt. That really like
Yeah.
50-year-old mom font. But
Live, laugh,
yeah,
love, and don't shit your pants.
yeah. But I think we kind of just stumbled into that where we're able to take a look at these really kind of big systems in the church and laugh at them because they're objectively crazy. Like a lot of the things that Adrian and I talk about are the things that we talked about when we were in the green room waiting to go on stage. Like all the worship leaders and pastors are saying the same thing. They just can't say it for whatever reason. So
That's been,
yeah.
I think, the most shocking thing for people. Will come up to me and it's usually in a very whispered and hushed voice. "Hey,
Yes.
I've been having these thoughts, and I think because I work hard to create a space where anything you say, I'm going to be non-reactive
Mhm.
to. And so I've had a lot of people say some things to me, and I'll look at them and be like, some of the people you respect the most feel the same way as you do, but they don't feel the freedom to say what you're saying. So you need to know you're not alone. And I'm just sorry that no one's been able to make that space for you and make it clear that you're not alone. And I think oftentimes we start with a joke and then we go into, because we're not ready. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not ready to dive in.
Yeah, I think that was always part of the recipe from the get. It wouldn't make sense for us, like given our personalities and our friendship over the years, to like try and be like a hyper serious podcast all the time. And then it also wouldn't make sense for us to just be like shock jocks, like dicks, and just be like ridiculous because that's not who we are. Like that's not like we are like truly equal parts. Yeah, that with the finger guns. That's despite what many people think.
Oh,
they
it's
actually
bad.
have us on their show, expecting for us to just be shock jocks, and it's like no, we're actually like
Yeah.
we're well-rounded human beings. And so I think what we kind of wanted from the get was equal parts heavy and light. We're gonna laugh at the shit. We're gonna like play some improv games, and we're gonna like do like ridiculous stuff, and then we're gonna write songs because it's fun. But then we're also like not gonna shy away from like the actual like difficult shit that we experienced and that we perpetuated as people,
Right.
like players in that system. And I think by what that turned into was kind of like some social media presence where we would just kind of create content, and it was like you would have one post like talking about some like really heavy shit, and then you'd have some other posts that are just like making fun of something like a stupid meme or something. And I think there was something about that recipe that people realized that it's like you don't have to, like no one's just one thing. And we were always taught that like we are one thing. We are the Lord's, right? And so it's just a way of so reductive.
It's dualism, right? Like, so you are spirit or body. And if you want to be like super nerdy, it's Gnosticism. You're one or the other. And I think what we're seeing is so many people are craving the reality of you can't be like the guy who's like in his 40s and is still hitting his friend in the junk because he thinks it's funny. Like nobody wants to be around that guy. Now, if that guy's making dick jokes and he's also like super intelligent, we like that guy. Maybe he's doing this. I mean, like
the finger guns. Yeah.
Right. Because we are a multitude, I think there's something to that. And I think you're right. In a church community, it was the flesh is weak, the mind, the thought, the belief, the idea of belief. Well, where's belief? If you were to ask like someone in a church system where belief is, everyone points to their head, right? So how did you like your dad? Do your folks have trouble, both of you, with how you've created space? I'm only looking at Josie because her folks have trouble with how she's created space.
Let's see how much time we got.
Yeah, I was gonna say by trouble that kind of implies that there's interaction. So
yeah, okay, that feels good. That feels real good.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mom's credit, her and I are the most similar out of the family. Like her baby pictures when she was in Cuba and my baby pictures when I was born in Hialeah in South Florida, which is basically North Cuba, are exactly identical. If I put on my mom's glasses, I look like my mom. It's freaky.
Yeah.
But she was over here maybe a month ago, and she's like been wanting to have lunches with me to talk about deconstruction. She grew up in Roman Catholicism, but left Santeria for Roman Catholicism. So, and then it like really then right into Southern Baptist evangelicalism.
Ooh, which is actually not that odd of a progression, truly.
Especially in South Florida here. But
usually
she,
how it goes.
Yeah. She came into my office and she's like, can I read this Universal Christ by Richard Rohr? I'm like, oh, yes, you can. Enjoy it. And I'm going to be getting a lot of questions. So to her credit, she's trying to be open about it, but it's still sad that her grandkids aren't growing up knowing about Jesus and God. That's her words, not mine. My dad takes everything or a lot of what I say as like he gets really defensive about it because he did so much to prevent my family from ending up like his. So yeah, it's been interesting where he just kind of just goes off, and I like Adrian can can vouch for me. When I was in the church, I was just a mean old person. And I think I've been a lot better at that. And even when he kind of blew up my spot, my dad did. I'm like, hey, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. I'm not going to go anywhere. Like we live within 15 minutes of each other. Like I gave you your first grandkids, and you can always hang out with them. You're always welcome. But I mean, at a certain point, like he's an adult and he has his own feelings and things he's processing. So I try not to steamroll people. But yeah, that's kind of where it is for me. I mean, I know Adrian's is even more drastic and it's even more long suffering. That's a good word.
It is long suffering. It's truly long suffering.
I got you.
Thank you. No, I think for me and my family, we really aren't really interacting. And honestly, it doesn't have much to do with my faith change. It actually has more to do with the things that stemmed from my faith change.
Yeah.
So when you go through a deconstruction and you kind of unlearn all of the ways in which you were taught like you are not your own, to reference like that book that Jamie Lee Finch wrote and the Bible, right? Like I think when I went through a faith change, I started to reclaim my own sense of agency, my own, like being in touch with my own intuition, taking care of my own mental health, go figure, right? These are things that were new to me, right? Taking care of my own emotional well-being, like if I don't want something, I don't want it. And so I think my whole relationship with my family changed because I started to like reclaim who I am as a human being versus being like kind of like defaulting to like honor your father and mother at all costs, regardless of the repercussion and regardless of the ramifications it has on yourself,
Yeah, I have a similar experience to you, Adrian. I left my house at 17. Don't
Me
recommend
too.
it.
Same,
five,
same, but not
Right.
for the same reasons. I went to college at 17.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents, we went through a phase where we didn't speak, and a lot of it had to do with like me reclaiming simply my life. And, hey mom, I'm 17 and I know we're Mexican, but maybe you can't spank me anymore. I think we're past that.
Damn.
And things like that, or like me saying like, hey, maybe we need some boundaries, and it's still an ongoing process. And like you said, it has very little to do with the faith change. The faith change is kind of just like their icing on top. They're little sprinkles of like, well, you don't even believe in the real God, so what you say doesn't even matter.
But I think that's like, as we were talking about like the idea of non-dualism, I think there's this thing too. It has everything to do with the faith change because it was all enmeshed, right? Like,
Yeah,
Totally.
the structures that you guys were being taught, how you were supposed to obey your parents, all of that, like it all, when you start questioning, it's a slippery slope. I put my
Ooh.
hands on my hips for those of you who
you're
are listening.
backsliding. You're
You're
backsliding.
backsliding, which sounds like a lot of fun, like wee. But
Right.
there is this
It
like
is.
there is this sense where I think everything is enmeshed, and we have got to stop acting as if everything isn't sacred and everything isn't part of it, and it all belongs. And now we have to figure out what that means. And I think the people that struggle the most with transition is because they want to compartmentalize, right? So like, I think about today, I was meeting with someone who has left their profession as a pastor because they started this incredible community, but the community could not accept the LGBTQIA. And they were like, I started this thing, but my friends are this. And I was for so long living where these are my friends, and I see this as a holistic, God-given thing. This is my community of faith. I can't live split. And I think it's so hard for people who that threatens, and family structures are often the ones that are like, no, we need you to be who you were in the family structure when you were 13. That's who we need you to be. And those moments when we start to, it's like hard to make space for ourselves and others. And the fear is that you're going to take up so much space, there's going to be no space for them, I feel like often.
Yeah, along those lines, have y'all experienced any type of push? I mean, I know we all experience pushback in the comment section, But has any of it really gotten to you in a way that is profound?
In the comments, so like social media and stuff.
It's
In
anywhere.
general.
Just
Yeah.
anywhere,
Oh.
yeah. You can
Well,
name
one time-
names if you want. I'm just kidding.
Name those names.
I can name the pastors, so I'll give you their address.
Hell yeah.
One time someone commented like, "Hey, y'all call yourselves dirty rotten church kids, but you're old ass men." I'm like, wow.
You're not wrong.
I'm like, so that actually was the most troubling. I was like, oh my god.
Damn it.
Well, first of all,
You're not wrong.
You don't say like, hey, I'm like a '90s kid. You don't still imply that like you're still like no, you were in the like you grew up in the '90s. Relax, bro. But that was like, wow. Excuse me. That was probably the most harmful thing I've ever heard. Is just someone straight up calling us old.
For people like that, I just respond with like, my therapist is going to know who you are. So just sit in that for a while.
Go ahead and say hi to my therapist. Hello.
LOL.
Oh, actually, I was thinking about this maybe a week or two ago, Adrian. When we first started the Instagram, there was that other Instagram account that was like manly men or something like that. But something about like being Christian men, but a lot of the posts were like how to like beat your wife into submission. Remember that?
It was okay. So it was this like super crazy, hyper fundamentalist, like men are the head in every way. And somehow he started posting about like, it was something to the effect of like, how a woman must be subject to her husband in all things. And what happened was in the comment section of that, there were people who were like saying, I want to like be obedient to my husband.
Yeah, that's what it
even
was.
if certain things get, and with that, it brought in like the woman was implying physical violence. And so that was like, but to your point, yeah, I do remember that. And someone brought that to our attention.
Yeah.
And we went off.
Yeah, we went off, and then like their followers at the time wouldn't stop commenting on their stuff. But that I think that's the only thing we've ever had. And
y'all have a squad, which I love.
Oh,
so
yeah.
one of my like I don't have a lot of like, I know a lot of people like whatever, but I had a moment where I was hanging out with my friend in Alabama who I just super respect his mind. He's incredible. And he said to me, look, like as I've been going through this stuff, I've been like following these guys. I think you'd really love their work. They're called the Dirty Rotten Church Kids. And I was like, I have a meeting with them in 10 minutes, which is the meeting that I called into from a bar. And his face was like Josh and Adrian. I was like, yeah. Yeah, like they made fun of me yesterday. Like I know who they are. Like, I like them a lot. Like we're friends. And it was the best thing. I was like, but it made me realize that for my friends who the shift has been difficult, you guys have been like the first thing they needed to do was laugh. It was like a release because they were already thinking there needed to be some normalization. Like you can't just jump into like reading. I think Richard Rohr is amazing. I love Richard Rohr. He's been wonderful in my life. And as a mentor, he's a wonderful person, but that's here. And sometimes you need to just like laugh at the weird, like, so Josie and then another friend of mine, Katie, both of them grew up in more Pentecostal environments. And sometimes I feel so bad because they'll start to tell a story and then I'm like, start to laugh. And I'm like, Josie, you have to tell me, wait, what did they say at your church? Because there's something about, and it's traumatic and I'm not laughing at her trauma, but I'm just sort of like, let's normalize this for a minute where that is not okay.
Totally.
Yeah, like to the point where when I was hit by a car. It tore my ACL.
In church? Oh.
No. It was at school.
That's crazy for Pentecostal, dude.
So I was hit by a car and it tore my ACL. And my parents, instead of, the routine ACL surgery, they're like, let's just pray over it and it'll be fine. And I was like, I can't walk.
Josie, did you speak in tongues?
No, I never was gifted the tongues.
Gift of tongues. Sarah, I presume you haven't spoken in tongues before?
No, I mean, I'm not really good at Greek. So
a crash course in speaking in tongues is you say, I should have bought a Honda, but I bought a Kia.
That's the trick.
I should have bought a Honda, but I bought a Kia. And you're pretty much golden if you really like lean into it.
There you go. We had different tricks in Spanish, but I don't remember them.
I mean, I remember when I didn't know the song lyrics in choir and I would just go watermelon. This is like a whole new level, guys.
That's like the watermeloning. Yeah, it's like the watermeloning of Pentecostalism. It's the same.
I'm now
it's like wild ride.
But to your point,
no.
To your point, it's really crazy to hear that folks have engaged with us. I think like in some way we're like a detox, like just kind of hang out. And like we can go as heavy or as light as you really want to go. And it's like we realize it. And it's like in Harry Potter with that thing where you say like ridiculous, and then like when it comes out, like you laugh at the thing, and then it doesn't torment you
Yes.
anymore.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what it's like.
I love that. Is incredible as an example.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Y'all are, it's really funny because I'm not the type of person that gets starstruck. I don't give a shit if people are famous, just as an 8 rule, because I'm an Enneagram 8.
She's like,
And
fuck you, I'll be more famous.
So am I. But if Gal Gadot were to walk into my office right now, I would fucking have a heart attack.
Oh
So,
my
Wait,
gosh.
who? Say it again.
She's pro-Israel,
Wonder,
so
Wonder
maybe
Woman.
not.
Oh god damn it,
Oh.
Josie, you had to run that for me.
You
You got to pick someone else now.
Sorry.
Dua Lipa. There we go. That's my latest. My
Oh,
latest
she's
person.
lovely.
Oh, she can sing.
Sorry, continue,
Yeah.
Josie.
So it was funny when this whole Irreverent media group thing started, and people were like, Josie, you know the Dirty Rotten Church Kids? And I was like, I guess. I don't know. Never heard of them. What can I say?
Such a Josie answer.
Which
That's
is
great.
funny because you guys are the first stop along the deconstruction road for a lot of people. But I think there's something to be said about those of us who never even got there, right? Like, but you still appeal to, like, I don't remember who we were talking with, Sarah, but this idea of like, I was never fully accepted into evangelicalism because I was a Latin woman. So, you know, I didn't have to really deconstruct in the same way.
Sure.
But now that I listen to your podcast, I guess it's very relatable. How do you kind of view your impact now that you have it? Like, is it overwhelming?
Yeah.
Do you think that it's amazing? Do you ignore it?
Well, I think so. Our initial plan was to do like a handful of episodes and see if we liked it and stop. But then when it started to like spiral out of control, we had a lot of fun with it. We're like, well, let's just keep going and we'll take a break during Christmas. So that's what we did. We took the month of December off. And then we came back and like so many people had asked us for like a place for them to connect with other people who listen to the podcast. And we made our Discord and like we set up a Patreon with like a super low entry fee because that's basically just to keep out any weirdos. But to answer your question, like the impact, I feel like we just like Joe Lumen did for us when we talked to her, just reminded people of the permission that they had to be themselves. Like our Discord, the people in there have done just like incredibly amazing, like paying off hospital bills for other people in the Discord, and not even telling that person and just Venmoing them like $550 if they have an injury, or like they're all doing a meetup in Denver, or a good chunk of them are. And then what makes you feel like a proud internet parent is seeing other ones of them like start their own accounts to talk about their story, but then now they're getting invited on podcasts. And so like some of them reached out to us and they're like, well, our story isn't the same as yours. I'm like, that's why you need to tell it. Because you're going to encourage at least one person. And if we can normalize these conversations, whether you're in the church, whether you're agnostic, all of it's fine. Like you said, Sarah, like all of it is at the table. The church, the church divvies our mind, our brain, our body. And I, for a long time, compartmentalized so very well. But when you realize like it's all holy, then it's all good.
That is something that I have just been dipping into a little bit with some of my friends coming out of fundamentalism. And the conversations we've had are around this compartmentalization. Like, they will compartmentalize things that they don't even, it doesn't matter. It's like, they're not telling a lie, but they're leaving things out of their life because they grew up being taught to leave things out of their life. And as they try to integrate all pieces of them, there are pain points. Like, it feels very vulnerable to share things that for those of us who all have had a permission to have the boxes open and not have to compartmentalize, like, you don't realize how, if you grew up in a home where belief was really important and you didn't believe the thing, what did it look like to pretend I believed it? But then I have friends that are outside of that, and I can't share that those friends, like, to create these separate categories and separate narratives that you have to like constantly be policing. I think that's a thing that I know several of my friends have said. I have just loved being able to be like, I see these Dirty Rotten Church kids and I think, oh, they're being honest about the things I want to learn how to be honest about.
Wow.
It's like, I want to learn how to be honest about that thing because I've learned to put like, this is the thing that I do over here. And then when you hear someone else say, this is the thing I do over there, and then you slowly integrate that box into who you are. And I think that you're right, that proud parent moment. I think my favorite moments in my years of ministry have always been when I don't know that the people I'm serving have started serving each other.
Mhm.
When I discover that they didn't need me anymore, you just go, oh, okay. And I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty of what you guys did. It might not have been your original intention, but think about that's life changing.
Yeah.
And I think the humor has a huge part in
A
it because
huge
we
part.
often forget. I'm a huge comedy junkie. Can't get enough.
Same.
But like the more you watch, the more you're like, these are the truths that people are too scared to listen to and accept unless it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
like that little barrier that you're willing to jump over because it's, oh, ha ha ha, it's funny. It's
I
true.
think it was
Totally.
called
Ha, ha, it's funny.
Nanette. Was it Nanette?
Yes. Mhm.
That is the most powerful example of anything I've ever seen that started with humor. Have you guys seen this?
No.
Then, oh, we'll
On
send you the
Netflix,
link.
it's great. Highly recommend.
It is the most powerful stand-up I've ever seen because you are rolling on the floor and then all of a sudden she makes this shift where she says, and it's funny if it wasn't true. And you go,
And that's her name, Nanette?
that's the name of the show.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you realize we're all talking about things that are actually painful. And it's
Mhm.
not to poke fun at it, but again, it's that normalization and opening up the box and saying, you too, like your parents, like literally Josie, the car accident, our other friend Katie got hit by a car and her parents were like, we'll just pray over it. And she's like, as a child learning, like I got hit by a car and my parents' first reaction is to pray over it. And I needed to forgive that person. Like I'm a child. I think we can laugh at it and then go, wait, what was really messed up about that structure? And how can we rebuild a box that is more open and safer and, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amen.
We had a conversation with Phil Drysdale, and because he asked us, he's like, when you started, you didn't really consider you were deconstructing. It wasn't like this, we are deconstruction people.
Here's
now.
what
And
we're
that's become
doing.
like, yeah, and it's become kind of like, I think maybe a junk drawer meeting, and it is what it is. It's totally fine. It can be that, certainly, if you need it to be that. But it's one of those things where like we were just kind of like unloading our own stuff. And so that happens over the course. We actually are releasing our 40th episode tomorrow. And it's like, he said, like, you guys have been, I guess, deconstructing in public. And that isn't something I had really considered. And as you go, you feel like you're like kind of frantically trying to catch up. And then you interact with folks and they'll go, hey, like, you guys said this thing. And like, I was curious, like, what was that about? And you have to sit back and go, oh shit. Yeah, there's something to that. And then that's just like another thing. Except the difference is now we do it like in mics. And so people have told us like, hey, you're growing and I can hear it. And that's wild to even consider that as a thing. And so there are people who go, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I'm like, dude, I don't even know what I'm doing. We don't know what we're doing. We haven't thought this out. Like we try not to take it too seriously. I think I'm a classic overthinker, which is why I need Josh in my life. He's an Enneagram 8 with a really strong 7 wing. So he's like, this is fun until it's not fun. If it's not fun, we burn it.
Wait, what are you?
I'm a 4 with a very strong 3 wing.
I'm a
Of
3 with a
course.
very strong 2. So we should get together and talk about it.
Yeah, let's hang for sure.
Just tell Adrian you don't like him and he'll make it happen.
Yeah, I'll change.
Yeah.
Same.
I'll transform.
That's it. I will make you like me.
I think too, like what's interesting about humor, we did this with we did like this like TikTok video experiment where we made worship songs based on like auto-generated
classic.
lyrics.
Oh, it was so good. Yeah.
And so I wanted to like, I wasn't gonna like do it and then like wag my tongue out, like I kind of like joke around and be intentionally like dumb. I'm like, no, I'm gonna try and make this as good of a song as I possibly can based on my experience in worship music. We both did. And what people were saying were like, you are able to laugh and you can inch really close to it if you're laughing at it. And you're like, that's actually scarily accurate. But in the humor, they go, I didn't realize how easy and like template stamped out worship music is. But that's like a commentary that you can do when you're laughing at it and people can actually kind of receive it. I don't think you can hear that. There's certain things you can't say if you're just like pointing a finger at it and be like, look at this bullshit. It doesn't really hit and it doesn't stick for me at least. And so I think that's another thing that other folks have kind of noticed is like, if I make fun of like a youth pastor sermon point over top of like a warm pad song based on like a pop culture reference, that's like real stuff that actually happens. And we can get really close to it if we're laughing at it.
That's what we did before we had the podcast, like together. That's why
we made jokes that we
all the time.
picked the wrong profession. Like we should have been mega church marketing professionals.
Yes.
Sold our services.
Y'all are real good at the manipulation that exists in these churches.
It's easy. It's easy.
It's easy.
I remember learning in AP music theory in high school because I was really smart. Just kidding.
Weird flex, Joe's. Weird flex.
I know, a little nerd over here. But I remember the lecture, and he was saying, we were talking about cadences, and it's like, this is the cadence you want to put at the end of the song if you want it to be sad. This is the one you put if you want it to be powerful. And you listen to it, it's like, oh my God, everything is
being manipulated.
Everything is a lie.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Tripp and I joke around all the time about like, you can either use your powers for good or your powers for bad. Him and I alone on a porch can laugh till 2 a.m. But if we're just poking and not trying to help, then it's putting out what I would call like the negative into the universe. You're just poking and not offering not an alternative, because you're not trying to create a church, but you're trying to say, but okay, but like let's include it, because there's so many people. Like I think people have the idea of deconstruction is just like, let's just burn it down, and then all these people are sitting around going, what I do now. And I tell the story. There's I won't say who, but a pretty well-known theologian who all these like Theo bros were super into, and he's amazing, wonderful. And my friend who is not a Christian went to one of his conferences because he was really interested in, my friend is like a Fortune, I don't know what he does. He like flips businesses, whatever that is. I don't have a business mind, but he he met up with me after he had gone to this guy's conference, and he was like, "Here, you're a person of faith." And I was like, "Correct. I actually professionally." And he said, "Tell me what you believe." And I was like, "Well, you know what? I'm like walking this line of trying to figure out if I believe this or if I believe this, but I'm like, I've landed here." And he just breathed this big breath, and he goes, "Thank you for saying what you believe, because I just sat through a conference where a guy just told all of these kids what he doesn't believe." And he goes, "As in a person who works in marketing and flipping businesses, I got to tell you, that's shit." And I was like, he goes, and so when the guy asked me like what I thought of it, I looked at him and I said, all these, they're mostly men, all these young men have come to you and you've torn down the thing they're a part of, and you haven't given them anything to go to. And I think the beauty of the work that you guys have done is you're like, I'm not going to say I know the answers, but I am going to say like, it can't be this, but maybe it's this. And where do we find the light in the hard, and then journey together, and then create a thing that like supports each other through it, so that it's not just like, yeah, this thing sucks, bye.
Yeah. And like, that's what we get a lot of, like, that's pretty much the biggest criticism we get is like, well, you guys are just against the church. I'm like, well, then you haven't listened to more than 5 minutes of anything
that you guys have ever done.
Or you're against God or whatever.
Yeah. And and I think it kind of goes back to when what you do, like your identity is a Christian in America, when anyone pokes at it. Because what Christians do, or the churches we went to specifically, they do the poking. They're like, nope, you're doing wrong. You're going to hell because this. You can't love this person. You celebrate on the wrong day. Like, so the church does that all the time. And so when the tables are turned and people are like, no, that's not correct. And it's kind of really weird that you would like sing a song about leaning back on God's chest and hearing him breathe deeply. Okay, calm down, Cindy.
Sexy.
That's really weird. And so people take any criticism towards the church like, well, you hate it. Like, no, like I'm really thankful for it teaching me how to play music, for bringing Adrian and I together. Like, that's where I met my wife. Like, there's a lot of good things that came from it, but also like there's some really hurtful things, but people can't get to that point because they're so just deeply rooted in the like all the tenets of reformedness or evangelicalism.
Yeah, and I think too is like, I am very much okay with like, if you want to like tear something down, you can like find something to replace it, or you can kind of just like exist in like open concept. You know, that's still something, right? Like a lack of something is something. And I guess like what's interesting is a lot of folks will come and interact with us, and then from there they'll be like, I love understanding like decolonization, so they'll just like latch on to Joe Lumen stuff, which is amazing. Or they're like, I love listening about like queer theology, or they're like attached to Kevin Garcia, and like, so we can in some way, like, I'm more than happy for us to be like the blunt instrument that just like knocks down some brush so you can get through. And then there's like a million different places for you to go. And if you want to like blame us for being the ones that like I'm fine with being the one that the parents are like, my kids start listening to that freaking podcast. Because if all we are in the beginning is just like I said, like a blunt instrument to get you out of whatever you're existing and that's been harming you, from there, man, it's a lot more fun.
Ooh, that's a great message from what's been harming you. Friends, you have been making space for people in a lot of ways. And one of the things we love to ask people as we're sort of winding down, because I literally could talk to the two of you forever. We'll just stay on this call forever after.
Sounds great.
It sounds good. When you think about like tangible ways that people can make space for other people or for themselves, can you think of like one thing that if they're listening to this podcast and they're thinking, yeah, I'm into like maybe starting to question this, or I want to start figuring out how I can talk to whatever it might be. Can you think of a way that people can make space for themselves or others? It's a big
I would say the biggest thing that I had to learn, and I'm still working on, is making space for myself, like my body. And so much healing and direction has come from me just like being quiet and like doing what my body asked me to do in that moment. Because for so long, you're like, we talked about this in one of our first episodes, just like the narratives we were handed, like the gender script you're given as a man in the church and what you're expected to do, yada, yada, yada. So I would say listen to your body, because your body knows what it needs. And I don't think you can do good for everyone until you're doing good to yourself. And so, I mean, that can take any shape or form, but just listening to what your body's asking, and then within reason, trying to give it to it. And then from there, I think you're better equipped to help others. That's my short answer.
I love that.
Adrian.
It goes
my whole life I
actually,
was kind of,
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say that goes back to his whole skateboarding. Like, I think about like what embodiment it is for you, that when you're like, where's my favorite space? It's when I'm in this like city that I love, but I'm like on you said a one wheel, which I cannot wait to see you do. I cannot wait to come visit you guys.
he's very good.
I'll just bring it past here on the Zoom, just like,
I'm into it. As someone who likes to ride a penny board back in the day, I think there's this sense of like, that's embodiment, like, right? The feeling, even being on that swing, right? Like you're in your body and you're feeling it in a way that I think we stopped playing. And so I think that's a great, like, listen to your body. Does your body need to play? We don't give people permission to play, but we never stop wanting to play.
That's good.
Sorry,
Adrian, go.
So didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. I know there's like, it's Zoom. I get it. I think for me, it's, we were always taught that like, just like what I said before, like the most important thing about you is your like Christian self, which isn't really your Christian self. It's like the iteration of Christianity that you project to the world. And that looks like a million things, with a bunch of stipulations. And the biggest thing that I've had to do is like learn, like, I am so much more than even my belief. Like I am so much more than that. I'm so much more than the things I think today. Like I'm so much more than the way I feel in this moment. And so like, I am infinitely more complex, just like you said, Sarah. Like I contain multitudes, right? And I think if you want to make space for other people, I am no longer threatened by all like the nuances and complexity within myself. And so I have there's really nothing for me to be offended at or to get defensive over, because like I want you to bring all of yourself to the table, and I don't care where you land, like whether it's in proximity to me and my belief, like anywhere on that gradient of belief or non-belief, like because you're more than even that. And so I think it's trying to see kind of like the commonality that we have between people, regardless of all like the superficial levels that we like put up. Of course, I'm always still going to be like, if the things you're holding on to and the ways you're acting on it are actively causing harm to marginalized communities, like I'm still going to like call you out and like make fun of you mercilessly, but I am able to like experience you. And that's not something that I was ever really good at before.
Yeah, I love that idea of like, if I'm a multitude, someone said to me last night, the more I know myself, the more I know God. The more I can the multitudes that I find within myself is my capability to see the multitudes of God and the multitudes of other people. And so you're right. You look at someone and you're like, if I can be both and, I always think about when people are like, well, I've landed on this decision. I always think about like people where I went to school love to read like dogmatics, and they would talk about like they love to explain how they love. Well, dogmatics is this like theological book that go on and on and on. Well, they reach different conclusions in different parts because the person who's writing it is moving through their theology. That's the version, by the way, of like working it out publicly. Back in the day was, I'm going to write this really long book, right? Now it's like, I'll just throw out a podcast. But I think we so often want people to have landed, and then we can say that's who they are. But then they change, and that's not who they are. And I am really grateful that you guys are willing to have your journey be public. I think that's been, it's been a good, just a buffer during a really difficult time to laugh with someone about it, and to be able to send memes to my friends who like just want to give the church the middle finger. And they're like, oh, but these people, there is something beyond just giving the church the middle finger. So thank you for doing that work. We really appreciate it. And also, I just have to say, one of my favorite places I've ever been is Cuba. Just so you know, Josh.
Well, I see. I have a good relationship with my mom now. If I go, she told me she's going to disown me. So when she passes away, then I can go. It's a whole thing. It's a whole bunch of Castro hate there. But
I grew up Canadian, so we went. But I went with parents.
I've heard it's beautiful.
Yeah, my parents are incredible Canadian British. They took us so that we would be able to experience poverty, and to like, not to like experience it, but to be able to look. They're amazing people, because it's a long story, but we lived in a fairly not well off area, and then to take us to another place and say, these are some of the most beautiful people you will ever meet, and they've been under oppression, and what does that look like? And like everyone else was like partying, and my parents were like taking us to the beach where we were like meeting it's how to like make your 12-year-old turn into a pastor who really cares about social justice. Don't do that to your kids, people. But it was a really good experience for me growing up, and I'm so thankful. But it was just the most beautiful country, so I hope you get to go. Friends, where can we?
Yeah, we have Cuba here as well. Yeah,
Miami, baby.
It's called Miami.
Sarah's trying to skirt on to the exit of this podcast. I'm not going to let her. Miami has so much good Cuban food. Kendall Doral. Let's go. Sarah, when you come down,
I cannot.
We're going out.
Wait,
we're going out.
Kevin was there this weekend. And so the thing about Kevin and I that's probably, I don't think it's codependent. I feel like it's not. We FaceTime each other at least 3 times a day. And so I was getting the morning FaceTime of like, and then the evening FaceTime. And I was like, you're having so much fun. I had FOMO.
It was a blast. It was a blast.
Great to see.
Yeah. Friends, where can we find you? Obviously, Dirty Rotten Church Kids are available on Instagram, but where else?
You can find us anywhere you commandeer fine podcasts. If you want to subscribe and rate and review us on iTunes, that does a lot. That's super, super helpful. You can follow us on TikTok at Dirty Rotten Church Kids, on Twitter at Dirty Rotten CK. If you want to send us an email, you can do it at dirtyrottenck@gmail.com. We have a merch store. If you go to teespring.com and search Dirty Rotten Church Kids, and then we have a Patreon where we release an extra podcast a month, and then you have a patron-only Discord group.
Ooh. Well, that is a lot of ways to be a Dirty Rotten Church Kid.
We're
too many things.
Too many.
I love it. Josie, where can folks find us?
You can find us by going to makingspacespodcast.com. You can search us up on Instagram, Making Spaces Podcast. I'm at Josie Takes the World, and Sarah is at Rev Sarah Heath.
True story. Thank you so much for joining us, friends, and join us next week, because we will be
saving a space for you. Bye.
Bye.